Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Chris Stankovich. This week's video, Sports Doc Chalk Talk, focuses on the issue of kids who are talented in a sport but don't necessarily love or even sometimes like playing that sport. You know, this happens probably more frequently than you might imagine. We now live in a day and age where kids begin specializing in a sport very early in their lives. They also often play that sport year-round, and as you might imagine, there's a greater risk for burnout or just overall fatigue, both mentally and physically, from keeping up that type of a schedule. You know, it's really an interesting paradigm to examine, though, because as kids compete more often and more regularly, they typically get better at their sport, but that doesn't always mean that they like or love the sport. And so pay attention. You know, this really isn't as big a deal when we're talking about the little guys, maybe 6, 8, 10 years old, but as you move up the ladder, especially when you get into high school, and particularly that jump from high school to college, if a student athlete doesn't really enjoy playing, and I would even argue love playing, then it's going to quickly become a job. And when a sport becomes a job, that's when you lose that motivation, you lose that focus, and it can lead to a host of issues, including problems around anxiety, mood disorders, can be academic problems if we're talking about a student athlete here. And so it's important for parents and coaches to tune in and not simply assume that if a kid is really good at a sport, he or she must also love that sport. Talk openly, talk regularly, and most importantly, listen to what the child has to say. If you create a warm environment, a trusting environment where a child can be honest with you, you're going to find out that he or she will probably share with you pretty honest information about how they feel about playing their sport. So do engage in this type of a conversation, especially if you're sensing that your child or a kid that you coach really isn't in love with playing that sport. Maybe have a candid conversation and talk about the future. Does it include playing as far as he or she can go, or are we looking at a sport retirement transition sooner, not because of lack of talent, but because of lack of interest?